So, we are going to be chatting tonight about the national wake up call from this week. But to start out, get rid of this. There we go. That's a little bit bigger. Just a few announcements and calendar stuff. I know Lindsay touched on this last week, but it's always good to have something that you can invite to. And that's why our group is set up the way it is with challenge group rounds. And so regardless of what program you're doing, it's just kind of a 4-week round. And so a lot of programs are in some increment of 4 weeks, or if you're doing a 3-week program, a lot of coaches will use like a week as a prep week, to get everyone ready. And I know that you are doing like a 3-week yoga retreat, so you can still function on that 4-week round if you want to by having a prep week in there. Of course, I have people that join the challenge group any time of the month, but some people just do better when they have a start date. And so that's why I've created these just for myself and how I invite people. So that's what those dates are. And I'm planning on inviting people to start Lift 4 on each of those dates. But again, as I talk to different people, if Lift 4 is not a good fit, I just say, the next round in our challenge group is starting on Monday. A lot of times if I have challengers who have disengaged for a while and they're like, I really need to get back into a routine. I've seen that a lot with, school starting back, like school teachers or just moms sending kids to school. I'll say, well, we have a new round starting Monday. Let's pick a program that, you want to start. And it may be someone who's like, I don't want to purchase early access to Lift 4. I don't want to do that. But I do want to get back into a routine and start a program, something that I haven't done before. So it's always a good idea to just kind of use these start dates to help people re-engage, to give them kind of a starting point. Summit Indianapolis 2019 is coming up. I'm going to mention that every week just because it's a really, really cool time, regardless of what your goals are as a coach, whether you're a business builder or a loyalty customer discount coach. Summit is really cool to be a part of. And so the tickets are on sale for cheaper until December, and they are transferable through December 31st. So if something comes up and you're like, I can't go, you can still transfer them to another coach, and not lose any money until December 31st. So there's that coming up. And then August 16th, we have started doing this. This will be our second time to do it. It will be the Thursday following the kind of challenge group start round. And it is this team call will be, I guess that's next week. This team call, we will invite all the challengers to attend and to join. And it will be a little more focused on supporting them, equipping them, giving them helpful information, answering their questions, giving them a time to talk and share. Of course, if people don't want to turn their video on or don't want to talk, they definitely don't have to. But just a way that we can provide additional support and just build the community in our challenge group. And so Jeffrey Foster will be leading that next week. Love Jeffrey, she really has a gift for communicating through video and just in person. She has a very extroverted personality. And so I think our challengers will really enjoy and get a lot of benefit and value from that call. So we definitely want to make sure we're encouraging them to attend that call. And then our coaching
for which challenge groups? Is it for the Lift 4, or are you talking about all challenge groups, or?
Well, when I say challenge group, that means our Cultivating Your Journey group.
Okay. So, okay.
Everyone, regardless of what program they're doing, is in that group. So anyone is invited.
Okay.
We might talk about Lift 4 if certain challengers have questions about that, but the information and the value provided will be good value no matter what program anyone's doing. So last time we talked about Shakeology and just the importance of it and how the diet cycle. And so it's all information that we'll record, and then we can share to those that don't make the call. So yeah. And if you have challenge groups outside of the Cultivating Your Journey one, you can definitely share the link to the call with them and, have them join in. It's basically for any challenger that's signed up with any coach on our team.
Okay.
And then the coaching sneak peek coming up will be that 4th weekend this month as usual. Sometimes we do a 3-day thing. Sometimes we do a 1-day thing or a 1 evening thing. I talked a little bit in the group text today about just some ideas for how to do a sneak peek, and that led me into a conversation with the coach that I got this idea from, Stephanie Richardson. I just began asking her what exactly her sneak peek looks like, and she sent me an outline of it today, and I thought it was really exciting and had some really great ideas in it. She's been around for a while. She's Melissa's best friend, our upline sponsor, and so I think there's some wisdom that we can learn from her. So we might change things up a little bit for this month, but I'm still kind of processing through that with some other coaches too. So we'll be chatting about that some more in the future, but it is going to be that weekend, regardless of if it's a 1 night, 1 day, or 3-day thing. So I did want to recognize Haley again for reaching Success Club already. Super exciting. And for those that are in the Team Builder group text, she shared today just how just a way to encourage people who maybe haven't hit Success Club yet, and just how the fruit of what she's seeing now is the result of previous months of hard work. And I know Jeffrey spoke into that too and just shared that some of the fruit she's seeing right now is from people she followed up with that she first invited over a year ago. And so just good reminders, I think, for us being consistent in this lifestyle that we're sharing with people, and just communicating to people, first understanding that the timing is not always right for everyone. And if we're extending invitations with open hands and we're not like close-fisted with it, we will understand, we won't take objections personally or even silences personally. We'll be okay with understanding that the timing differs for every person. And if we're just continuing to be available and consistent and present, and following up with people like that, that is all we can do. And so it's cool to see that whereas the timing wasn't right for a lot of people for Jeffrey a year ago, like it is now. And she's built that trust with them just by continuing to show up, daily and being there and being available when and if they were ready. So I thought that was encouraging today. But well done, Haley, again. And I know, Laura, you're really close, and Lindsay's really close. Y'all both have 4 SC points already. So that's super exciting. It's always a goal of mine to hit it in the first half of the month, which we are approaching closely. So that's something we definitely want to keep focusing on, because again, those points represent people. So let me get a drink first. So Jess talked on the National Wake Up Call this week about being fearless. And I thought, especially towards the end of the call, gave us some really good tips on like practical ways to walk through when fear does arise. And I think it's some really good stuff. But I wrote down at the beginning just a few points as she was, at the beginning of every call, they tell us like who you were before you got started. Like, let's hear your story. Like, where did you come from? And so when she kind of got into her story as a coach and, working her business, she said a couple of things that just like stood out to me. And one of the things was, if you want something, you have to be willing to work for it. And I think that's definitely true. She also just said, she didn't have power hour chunks of time. She was working full time. And so she figured out how to fit this business into the power pocket times in her day that she did have. And so she would do personal development during her long commute in the car. I got to do some of that on Monday when we were driving for 12 hours, and it totally changed my mood and my demeanor from the start of the day, you know, coming off of vacation, just not being very motivated, being able to do that much personal development was really, really good for me. And so I love how she just okay, well, I have to drive to work, so I'm going to listen to personal development while I drive, you know, taking advantage of those power pockets of time. And then she also said previously she did not take her 60 minutes for a lunch break that she was allotted. She would just work through lunch, at her job, but she now took that hour for her lunch break and instead just decided, okay, I'm going to invite for an hour. How many invitations can I send out during this hour? And so really just being intentional with that. And, you know, we may not have 60 minutes to do that, but we can set a timer for however long we do have and say, okay, I'm going to do this activity for this long. I'm going to invite, I'm going to follow up, I'm going to check in with my current clients, you know, whatever the activity is. I find so much value in setting a timer and working. I've started doing a lot of my life this way on a timer, and I think it helps. I think you know, it might sound a little strict or rigid, but it's worked even in time with my boys and just telling them okay, I'm going to set the timer for 30 minutes and we're just going to read books for 30 minutes. And, you know, you have mama's full attention. I'm not going to look at my phone. I'm not going to get up and do the laundry. I'm not going to do anything but sit here on the floor with you for 30 minutes. And when that timer goes off, then I need to go take the towels out of the dryer, you know, and just having them see that I'm not trying to multitask. I'm trying to be fully present wherever I am. I did that tonight actually for a little bit with my the missions organization that I work for the nonprofit. I set my timer for 20 minutes and I was like, okay, I'm going to stay in my inbox and work on everything in my inbox related to IGO for 20 minutes. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm not going to respond to text messages. It just helps us, I think, to be a little more fully present when we can structure our time that way instead of just being all over the place. So she kind of introduced everything by talking about why does this matter? Why do we need to focus on being fearless? You know, and she gave this analogy of if we had a cure for a disease, which immediately my thought went to as believers, we have, you know, the ultimate good news. We have the gospel. And a lot of things, I was talking with a newer coach earlier this week, just about how a lot of the values and things I've learned in coaching have really sanctified me in my spiritual walk, and just saying, okay, well, if I'm going to be bold enough to invite someone to my challenge group, am I bold enough to share the gospel with people? Am I bold enough to, you know, reach out and check on people and encourage them, you know, in whatever. And so I think that's very similar here to, you know, she said, if you had this cure for a disease, you wouldn't think twice about what it cost or your fears about it, or if someone was going to reject you, you would tell everybody. And I think that's a good thing to remember, because what we do as coaches does have the ability to change people's lives. And I mean, if we've experienced that ourselves, I know that it has changed every facet of my life. And it's not because there's some power in Beachbody or in these products. It's that this is an instrument that the Lord used, not just to help me with my health, but to help me become more disciplined in reading my Bible and just become more disciplined in my relationships and all of my roles and responsibilities that the Lord has given me. It was just one area of my life that I thought was separate, that the Lord was like, no, this is all intertwined and it's all connected. And so it was a tool that the Lord used to change so much about me. And so that's why that's something I need to remember as my story, and what should fuel me in being fearless and sharing that with others. So, you know, she said she kind of made 5 different points, and this is the first one. Like, it's important to fearlessly share our stories first. And then she talked about, do you think you have to be perfect? And I feel like this is a theme that has come up, I know in my personal development a lot lately, and I've shared here and there about that. But she just pointed out, like, that's not real life. Like, perfection's not real. And so we cannot compare our journey to others and fall into thinking that some people are perfect, because it's just not the case. And she said, don't feel like you don't have what it takes to coach. She said she realized, she talks about her brother dying, and she said, I realized I had a choice. I could show up with the mess of all I was dealing with, or not show up at all. And like that was the choice she had to make. And I think that's the choice we're presented with. Like, as we experience life not being perfect, which we don't have to go very long without experiencing that. We can either show up and be transparent and be real, not meaning that we need to share every single thing, but, just sharing, like, that things aren't going that great, and how we're dealing with it, how we're walking through it, like what we're clinging to in scripture when things don't go the way we want it to. We can either show up with that, or we don't need to show up at all. Like, we don't need to show up and be fake and pretend that nothing's happening, because that's not helpful to anyone. And so she said, take that pressure off yourself to be a certain way, or to be perfect, and to ask the question constantly, can someone go to my page and relate to me? Or is someone going to go to my page and think, oh, she's got it all together? Like, if we know that we're not perfect, like, other people are not perfect either. And so they want to relate to us. They don't want to feel intimidated by us, or like we have something that they can't relate to. I feel like Lindsay Rigney does a really good job of this. She's constantly saying in her posts, like, I'm sharing this because I want you to see yourself in me. Like, I want you to understand that I understand. And, just constantly reminding people of that, like, telling ourselves and sharing with people, we're not sharing our journey to come across as the hero. Like, this isn't about us. This is just us sharing our messy journey along the way, and wanting to encourage you in yours as well. So she, just along with that, she said, your newsfeed needs to really reflect truly who you are. You don't want it to just be fitness, because that's not just who you are. You want to share your hobbies, like what you do on the weekends, the ins and outs of your daily life. My posts all center around the things that matter the most to me. And I think I've shared those with y'all before. But as far as hobbies, it's reading and writing. A lot of my posts focus on relationships, specifically with parenting or marriage or community. And then there's the health and fitness side of things, the nutrition side of things, just what I'm learning in personal development. Like, most of my posts center around those things. It's not just fitness all the time. Fitness can fit into your life without being your entire life. And you want people to understand that. Like, you don't want people to think, oh, the only reason she's successful, or the only reason she's lost 40 pounds is because this is all she does all the time. Like, no, that's not real life. And so you want to choose to reflect, your news feed should reflect who you are. And so I think that's a good question to ask ourselves, from time to time, just evaluate, like, is my page reflecting me? And so she said, it's also important to share the business opportunity fearlessly. And I think this can sometimes be challenging, and is a point, I think, for business builders, that people, like, it's almost like a threshold you have to cross over, because a lot of people are like, okay, I'm going to share about, challenge groups and these tools, but it's like a different thing to share about the business opportunity. And I've heard so many coaches share that it can be a little more intimidating, a little scarier. But it's very important, if you're wanting to grow your business, that you deal with that fear. And just speaking from experience, to me, it is so, so fun once you are able to start growing a team of people, because it's really like having your best friends around you all the time, just like-minded friends who lift you up, encourage you, and who are striving for the same things you are. Like, it's just super, super cool community to be a part of. But she just made the point, remember that a lot of followers are watching that are too afraid to ask for help. So many of the coaches on our team who are rocking it, who are killing it, would never have reached out to me or to their upline coach by themselves. Like, I think that's Jeffrey's story. Jeffrey said she watched me for a long time, and she would not have ever reached out to me, but it was an invitation that was extended that helped her. And so we just have to know that there's a lot of different personalities out there, and a lot of personalities where people will never reach out. Some people will, and it's better for them to do that in their timing, but it's good for us not to prejudge others, and just to be to realize that there are those that will follow silently, that will never like or comment on anything, or reach out, but that need that invitation extended. And she talked about that for a while. She said, if my mouth is not moving and my fingers are not tapping, then my business is not open. And then back to don't make assumptions. And she said, what if my coach had made assumptions for me and never offered this opportunity to me? So apparently she was one of those people that wouldn't have reached out to her coach. So definitely a lot of different personalities in play to kind of consider there. But along with that, sharing the business opportunity, she said it's because of her confidence in what she's offering that fuels her invitations. And she said, it's important to post call to actions, but to then take it one step further. Like, if someone likes or comments or watches your stories, like, start a conversation with them to find common ground. And that doesn't mean it needs to be, hey, I saw you liked my post, do you want to join my challenge group? Like, it doesn't have to be that. It can be sometimes, depending on the context of the post. But what I love to do is when someone likes or comments or watches my stories, I'll message them and just say, hey, I saw you liked my post last night. I saw that you've been viewing my stories. That's always so encouraging to me. Thank you for doing that. How have you been? Or any idea how we got connected? Like if it's somebody that I don't know, just expressing gratitude and just starting a conversation with people. Because whether they know it or not, they're supporting your business by liking, commenting, viewing. And so how dare we not say thank you for that? Like, even if they don't realize what they're doing, it's good for us to express gratitude for that, and just to be encouraged by that genuinely. She made the point, most of the time people don't say yes until they've said no 3 to 6 times. That's statistics. We generally have to be touched or followed up with 7 to 10 times is what I've heard before we trust someone or something enough to make a commitment to it. So that's just important to know. A lot of people won't say yes the first time. Sometimes they will, and that's awesome, but that's not always the case. But we want to follow up, tell them we're thinking about them, and ask if they've had a chance to read the message. And if they say no, you can always follow up a month later. That's what she said her kind of follow-up process is, and that's what I've adopted as well, and it seems to work really well, just to check back in with people a month later and say, the next round in my challenge group is starting, just seeing if the timing is better for you. Here's what some of us are doing, but there's other options if that doesn't fit. Are you interested at all? Okay, so this is the very practical part that I think was very helpful. And I think we could apply this in so many different areas in our lives, especially as believers. And I'll kind of talk about like how I think we can filter this through the lens of what we believe in Scripture. But I think it's very practical. She said, when you feel those fears creeping in with your business, with whatever it is in life, for example, my oldest is starting kindergarten in like 10 days. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can easily feel fear creeping in about all the things. And so, whether it's worrying about what people are going to say to an invitation, or whether it's worrying about all the things my son is going to be exposed to in kindergarten, I can write down all my fears on a piece of paper. And I think that's important. Like, I don't think we should pretend like the fear doesn't exist, because we're not getting anywhere with that. Like, fear is a very real thing. And so um, I've explained to my boys before, that bravery or courage does not mean that you're not afraid. It means acting despite the fear, moving forward, and trusting the Lord despite the fear that's there and very real. And so, acknowledging those fears, writing them down on paper, identifying exactly what it is we're afraid of, that will enable us to approach those fears head on. And so she just kind of gave the example. Okay, so after you write them down, go through the scenarios. If this person says no, if they have an objection, how can you respond to that? And there are so many amazing national wake-up calls about how to deal with objections. And I've recorded a lot of the notes on our team drive, so you can easily find those if you just search objections. So you can have an arsenal of how to respond when people say no. And how to be excited about that, because a lot of times when people say no, it's because they have a lack of knowledge, or they don't understand the value of what it is you're offering. And so when they have an objection, that's the perfect opportunity for you to respond. With helping giving them more information. And so you can kind of identify like how you'll respond to those things. And then I loved this question: how will my life change if any of these fears actually come true? And the answer is it won't. Like, it won't. When it comes to this business, like, some of those fears coming true might sting a little bit, but like, they're not going to harm you or change your life. And I've had some fears come true that have stung quite a bit, from close friends and family. But ultimately, like, and I think Jess said this, like, at the end of the day, she still has her husband, she still has her kids, like, and if the people that are closest to you believe in what you're doing and affirm that and are supportive of that, then you need to continue doing it, even if there's a few people along the way who try to bring you down in that process. And I think the longer you're in this, the more you'll see that. I've shared this before, but I've had some intense opposition from. I've been blamed for things before, but anytime something like that comes up, I go to my husband first, because he's always kind of my voice of reason. And there's been a scenario so intense where we then went to our pastor, like one of the pastors and elders at our church, and just said, are we in the wrong at all in the situation? And just sought wisdom from him. And so I think if those people who are walking closest with you affirm what you're doing, then yes, if some fears come true, it's going to sting a little bit, but it's not going to harm or change your life unless you allow it to. But then I love what she said on the end. Now do the opposite. Walk through the best case scenarios. Like, what if they say yes? What if they say yes? What if their life is affected like yours has been? What if they develop these disciplines that change so much more than exercise and nutrition in their life? Like, what if it begins sanctification in their own life and heart that changes their marriage for the better, their parenting, their role as an employee at their job, like whatever it is, like what if they say yes? And so she just made the point, like, our fears seem so much bigger in our heads, and when we write them down, it can help. And I found this to be true, just in prayer journaling, when I'm very honest and write out to the Lord, like what's bothering me or what I'm worrying about. And then I respond with truth from scripture to that. Like, it helps me deal with the fears, the worries, the anxieties. And so I think there's a lot of truth that we can take from that. So lastly, she kind of concluded with Mel Robbins wrote the 5-second rule. Just when you feel that fear creep in, saying 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just doing it. She just said there's value in that. Just in the actions and our task in our business. And she said, fear should really dissipate as you realize that you're simply educating people. You're giving them more information when they give that objection. And so her call to action for us was to realize, that this is one of the best jobs in the world. We get to change people's lives for a living. Like, that's what we get paid to do. And just her point, to escape fear, we must go through it, not around it. We can either face our fears or back down. We can't just ignore them or pretend that they don't exist. So that's kind of the overview of what she shared there. Ashley, I see you jumped on. I'm guessing that maybe you still have babies around you or something, but feel free to turn your camera on if not. And we've got 5 more minutes just to kind of, if you want to talk about that or have another question that you want to ask from anything related to challenge group or our team or coaching, any struggles or victories from the past week, questions, comments, any of that stuff.
I don't really have any questions or anything, but that was really good to listen to. I have sort of been taking a break from everything just because Eric is currently right now working full-time, plus he's the worship leader this summer, so I haven't had a whole lot of extra time, but kids are about to both be going back to school, so I want to like get back into everything. And so that was just good, like motivation, like what you were just talking about. So
Yeah, that's good stuff. I think one of the most helpful things for me, just in being in this business now 2.5 years, is making sure I'm listening to the National Wake Up Call every week, because it really can help focus you and motivate you and equip you, I think, for just the day-to-day, week-to-week, monotony of doing some of the same task over and over again. And I heard someone say, maybe it was Jeff Hill, in the past year, I think he said, like, we're the only company that does weekly calls like this. And so I think they really try hard to equip us and motivate us. And I think it's super valuable. I can see a difference. Like, if there's a week that I do miss listening to it, I can see a difference just in my my work ethic for the week.
So when you were talking about like rejection and like how to deal with that and stuff, like it's funny because this past week I had somebody sign up with me who has told me no at least 7 times. And we've been talking for like 1.5 years. And then just one day it's just like something clicked. And like, I've continued to comment on her posts and like give her advice and stuff like that. But I literally thought she would never do it because she told me no so many times. So it's just funny, like how if you stick with it, like something might actually come from it, even though you may think nothing ever will,
Yeah, absolutely. So many cool stories of that, for sure. I think a lot of coaches on our team who've been coaching about 1 year or so are experiencing that right now. And it's so encouraging to see, because it's just the timing does differ for different people. And and some people will sign up and they won't do anything, with what they buy, at least at first, and I think that's another reason, like, even once people purchase something, I think it's important to continue checking in with those people and encouraging them and letting them know you're there. Like, we can't do anything for people, but we can steadily, I should say, let them know that we're there if and when they want to move forward.
I didn't really have any questions either. I thought it was great. But I did like, especially about setting a timer, because I was watching the one of the power hour things from the Firefly Project, and I noticed she was doing that too. And so I thought, okay, that's a good idea, way to keep myself, because I will kind of get like laser focused and kind of let the whole house fall apart. So, yeah, that'll be a good habit for me, I think.
Yeah, it's been very helpful for me, just in a lot of areas. And even just looking at, okay, I don't have an hour today. I have 30 minutes today. So I'm going to spend 15 of that doing this, and then 5 doing this, and then, another 10 doing this. Like, just kind of breaking down, what are my priorities today, and how much time do I have to get that done, and what percentage of that time do I need to be spending doing, each of those priorities. Okay, well, thank y'all for being here, and I will end this and get the recording up and share it with everyone. But thanks for being here, and y'all have a good night.
You too.